Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. To follow us on Instagram, go to No Name Music Cast Podcast. To send us an email, it's nonamemusiccast@gmail.com. And to visit our website, go to nonamemusiccast.com. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here we are, Thursday night. Another passionate conversation that Joy and I had before we hit record and play this evening. I still think there's some merit with No Name Music Cast After Dark or No Name Music Cast
I think so.
Unfiltered or something. I don't know.
We have to figure that out. I think it's well within our reach. And it would probably be exactly what everybody thinks. Though we've never directly said it. All right. Well, I think Tim has a little bit of music news he'd like to start us out with.
Yes, absolutely. So I have one music news item. Now, this was something that happened yesterday. So the Weezer, you know the band Weezer, or the Weezer, probably just Weezer.
I was like, the Weezer.
Well, it's like the Led Zeppelin, you know, the Sum 41.
I don't know why, but when you said that threw me the real loop. So yes, Weezer.
Yeah, the Rough Justice, you know how that is. Weezer's bassist's wife. Okay, so this is a little get removed from the world of the Weezer, but it's the bassist's wife. She was shot by police and booked for attempted murder.
She was shot by the police, and then they had booked her for attempted murder. So who did she try to kill?
Okay, so
is she alive? What? So
the lady's name is Gillian Lauren. She's an author and has done some other things like that. There was a hit and run situation in Los Angeles, and the police were chasing people who was part of this hit and run. So she was in her backyard of her house with a weapon, probably because she heard commotion. And then the police came back to her neighborhood and asked her to drop her weapon, and she didn't. And there is various reports that say that she discharged her firearm, and they asked her to drop her weapon, and she didn't. So they shot her.
And she's alive now.
Yeah,
so
she's alive.
It
was a non-fatal shot. It was a shot to the arm,
which is what they're supposed to do. Thank you, California.
Yeah, and she went to hospital and is recovering and all that stuff. But yes, she has been. Booked for attempted murder because apparently brandishing a firearm at a police officer is an attempted murder charge.
Well, especially if they ask you to put it down.
Yeah.
That's the key there, Tim. In America, what is it, 10 guns per person or something? I don't know what the number is. Don't come for me, internet. That's sarcasm, but it really isn't because it's like, isn't that like a real statistic, Tim? Anyway, so having a firearm in and of itself isn't the problem. I think the problem is that they asked her, hey, can you put that down? Because you're not involved in any of this, and she didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that for some people, if there's commotion and guns and noise and things, the first thing you're going to do is grab your weapon, especially maybe in some parts of Los Angeles, and stand your ground. But of course, you come out with this weapon, and then the cop says, ma'am, please put your weapon down, and then you don't.
We're handling it. That's so random, Tim. That might be the most random bit of music news that's ever happened on the No Name Music Cast. Like, what? Okay, well, did you have anything else, sir?
No, I mean, that really...
summarizes America.
Exactly. The only other news I have is not music-related. Well, it's sort of music-related because it's me and I play music. I had a new dishwasher installed this week.
That was the cutest thing you've ever said. It's me, and I play music.
Well, there we are. Yeah, I had a new dishwasher installed this week. This is something that I'd planned for a while to have this dishwasher installed. So, that was all... Is
it a robot dishwasher? Is there something fancy cool?
No, it's made by Whirlpool, and it was like $800 or something. It's just a standard dishwasher. But
fine.
So we bought it, and then it took 3 weeks for it to be installed. Because, I bought it through Lowe's. And then they
have to come bring it out.
Yeah, and then you have to get a date and blah, blah, blah. Anyhow, in the time from me buying the dishwasher and the dishwasher being installed, we noticed in the adjoining room that the floor had started to get weird. Like, but it's a laminate, it's a
Right.
wooden laminate floor
Every
thing.
homeowner's worst fear.
Yeah, and it started to like buckle weird, and then like it started to
Mhm.
swell, and it was weird. And I originally thought that there was maybe some pipes underneath our concrete slab that had burst. That was
Okay.
my original thing I thought. And
Okay.
then, and then our friends from Lowe's come. They pull the old dishwasher out to find that underneath the dishwasher was a complete lake of water.
Great.
And then when the guy got it on his truck, he said, "Yeah, there's a solenoid underneath, and it was really rusty." And he said, "That's probably where your
Hmm.
water's coming from." So
Been
so we
leaking.
mopped it all up, and it took a day or so to dry because you'd mop it, and then because it's on concrete, it would sort of still be wet. And we did this several
The
times.
residuals were
Yeah,
there.
but this evening when I got home, I took the bottom plate off, and it was bone dry. So I screwed that back up. So luckily, it was just that, but it's ruined my living room floor, which I hate anyway. So I'm going to have a new floor installed.
Yay. I mean, that sounds like every person ever has had some weird thing like that happen. I had the problem with my ceiling in one of my kitchens slowly buckling. And now I have a drop ceiling that looks like I'm in a high school, but you know what? It's better than having water damage on your ceiling.
No, no, absolutely 100%. That's the thing. It's like with electrical things, I will do that because that
Mhm.
makes sense to me. And even like painting, decorating, some minor repairs, I'll do that. Anything with water and plumbing, I just want nothing to do with
So
that.
that's literally what Charles feels too. So for those who don't know, Charlie has a little bit of an IT background and he talks a little bit with Tim about this and they've like, you know what I mean? I don't want to say scatting because it's not like you guys are doing like a back and forth, but Tim's talked to Charlie enough that
Hmm.
he knows what I'm talking about. Charlie's pretty smart on these things. And when it comes to IT, he refuses, Tim. My husband absolutely refuses to get shocked. Like he does not want water and electricity or anything that will shock him. Because he's like, I have been shocked too many times. I'm not doing it. I will not do
I
it.
mean, with electricity, I know where the breaker box is, and I've got one of those little pens that you put in to
Hmm.
know if it's live or not. So electricity makes sense to me. The problem with plumbing is if plumbing
Yep.
goes south, it really goes south.
Also, the weird thing about plumbing is it's one of those things that I've talked about with printers. Plumbing is still very old school, Tim.
Oh,
Like the
yeah.
mechanisms behind plumbing were literally invented during the Romans, and we have not upgraded it
Yeah.
like at
Yeah,
all.
if you had a time traveling plumber from the 50s and you put them into today's
They would
world,
still be working.
90% of it is probably the same.
Thank you. And it's the same thing we talk about with like printers. You know, everybody complains about the printer, right, Tim? There's so many. One thing that I find really funny, and I think about this a lot, if you've ever worked in an area where you have like a big printer, there are so many things in it that can go wrong. Like it's got like 74 mechanisms. Tim knows exactly what I'm talking
Yep.
about. Like you have a and I'm like, why have we not? Why have we not upgraded this? Like literally when I look at things like AI and VR and where we're at, right? I'm like, how have we not upgraded the printer? Why is it hardware sits in the back? And I feel like that's the same thing with plumbing. Plumbing is a lot of hardware based things. There's not software. No one's running a computer to run your plumbing generally, right, Tim? Like you open it's weird because like when you open the back of your toilet and you have to do the thing and you can like pick up the chain when it's not running, it feels like very caveman-esque.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I feel like plumbing as a whole, and this is not just in America, I think universally, is still very old school.
Yeah, because I mean, you're delivering water to a point or taking water away. And that's
There's not a whole lot more to it.
no. But like you say, though, I'm sure some of the fixtures are more modern these days and more durable.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially, it's exactly the same. But as I said, I want nothing to do with plumbing.
That's the point I'm getting at, though. It's the different mechanicism,
Mechanism.
whatever. Mechanism. Yes, that sounded right. Thank you, Tim. You laughed. The eyes were laughing. Continue, Tim.
Okay. Well, that's all I have. I have that music news, and then I have plumbing news, which is a new segment on the show, plumbing
We're off
news.
to a great episode so far. We spent 20 minutes discussing how plumbing is not aged. All right. So I have a bit of music news, but my music news runs right into the episode. So that's why I am last. So have you seen that after 2 decades of back and forth, Madonna and Elton John have buried the hatchet?
I
Tim?
did see that. Yes, it's like people never thought it would happen. It's like the Eagles getting back together almost.
So for those who don't know, they're first of all, Madonna and Elton John might have big egos. I don't know if anybody's heard that, but record scratch for
Yeah, I
anybody
mean,
who doesn't know that.
Elton John will probably tell you as much. I don't know whether Madonna would admit that, but it's probably true.
No, and that's why we love Elton. We also love Madonna, but Elton is a self-aware queen. But anyway, so their feud began in 2002. Though I think it goes back further than that. That's just what my official news was giving me. When Elton criticized Madonna's James Bond theme for Die Another Day at the Q Awards, which I don't know that I know what the Q Awards are. Do you, Tim? What are the Q Awards?
The Q was a music magazine. I don't know whether it still exists, but it was a award ceremony.
Okay, well, I was 12, so that doesn't help me. Escalated with Ellen calling her a word we're not going to say on the podcast, but basically he called her a fairground stripper. That's the thing. During her MDNA tour, questioning her win in the 2012 Globes for her masterpiece, but in a heartwarming moment recently, Cough Guard, they have reunited. Backstage at Saturday Night Live in March 2025, so just last month, Madonna later puts on her Instagram about an emotional reunion between her and Elton, asking for forgiveness. Elton reportedly contacted her, said, "Hey, I would like to, work through this," and da 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 da. And he says he's written a song for her, and hoping they could collaborate it in the near future. Now, I don't know if he or Bernie wrote it, but he told her he wrote it. I don't know. But it's super cute. After years, like the public jabs, lawsuits, for back and forth, whatever. I don't know if there's any lawsuits. I'm being dramatic. But it was nice to see them come together.
Absolutely. I mean, the other thing as well is Elton's not getting any younger. And, do you really want to go to your grave with hatred?
Madonna isn't either. Well, I've recently seen a few headlines. Elton's losing his eyesight. Have you seen that, Tim?
No, but I mean, he's probably 80 years old.
Well, I saw some really sad things. He's coming out, and in Elton fashion, of course, he goes from 0 to 1,000, right? Mm-hmm. Apparently, he's losing his eyesight, and he can't. He made a lot of headlines about now he's not seeing his children and things like that. Like he physically can't see anymore.
That's terrible.
And so I worry about that, and I think that this kind of maybe in and of itself lends itself into that. So anyway, if you haven't picked up on this, as another episode of the No Name Music Cast comes out, we're going to talk about basically people fighting. So I picked up a couple of music feuds. This is the music feuds episode. We're diving into the drama, the diss tracks, the insults, the headlines. Because Joy loves a music feud. We're just not talking about petty fights. We're talking about shit genres, change careers, and sometimes some of them ended a little tragically. And the first one we're going to talk about ended very tragically. And there's debate on who did what or where. But Tim probably not super familiar with these people's music, but I know he knows about 1994 to 1997. We're talking about Tupac Shakur and the Notorious B.I.G.
Yes.
Very famous feud.
Yeah, these are people I've heard of in recent times. But if you'd have asked me 15 years ago who either of those were, I would have had no idea.
That's weird. So for those who don't know, they're kind of like friends turned enemies from what I gather. Tupac was shot 5 times. He was in front of Quad Recording Studios in NYC on November 30th, 1994. He believed, well, he didn't believe it, passed away, but they believe that Biggie and Bad Boy Records were behind it. And they had prior knowledge of the situation and they did not warn him. I do not know. And me and Tim do not want to go to whatever jail you get put in for conspiracy theories, so we cannot confirm or deny any of this. But that is the theory. That's a joke, y'all, because there's a lot of back and forth about who did what. There was a diss track, so there was Hit 'Em Up in 1996, where Tupac goes after Biggie, Faith Evans, and others. There is a little bit of back and forth about maybe Tupac did things with Biggie's wife, Faith Evans. We're not going to get into that. There is plenty of public insults, interviews, and cover stories. But at the end of the day, yeah, he was shot. So I will say, Friends Turned Enemies after Tupac was shot 5 times. I think I said November 30th, but I actually think it's September 30th, 1996. And oh no, that's when Biggie was murdered. Biggie was murdered September 30th, 1996. So
Okay. The thing is that when I started hearing the name Tupac, like
Tupac.
there's a product in England and here, like Bondo that you fix cars with. That it's like a filler that you can sand. In England, that stuff is called it's like a 2-pack thing where you mix two things together, and it's called a 2-pack filler. That's the only thing I ever thought of.
I mean, Tupac's kind of a weird name. So I would be clear. I think I said an extra day here. Tupac Shakur was September 30th, 1996, and Notorious B.I.G. was March 9th, 1997. Don't cover me, internet. If I said a different date, I apologize. I have 3 different dates here, and I might have looked at the wrong. But Tim is correct. Tupac is an interesting name. Also, there was like Tupac dated who was it that he dated? Was it Madonna? There's like a thing that Tupac dated Madonna, and I find that very weird, Tim. I'm pretty sure it was Madonna. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I struggle. Did Tupac date? Yes, Tupac and Madonna Shakur dated mid-1990s, from 93 to 94. I don't know about you, but when I think about people in the music industry, I do not think about Tupac Shakur and Madonna even being in the same hemisphere.
Well, I mean, the music they make is different, and maybe the company they keep is also different. But you're in that industry, so you're probably sharing managers,
I know, but it's so weird
promoters,
to think about.
tour people. So yeah, though they come from different universes, they probably connect just being in the music industry.
I mean, I know that, but it's weird when you hear it because you just don't think about it. Do you ever hear people who were together and you're like, what do you mean Taylor Swift and Metallica were hanging out last week? I don't know. It throws me for a loop. Anyway, so the next one we're going to talk about is, we're going to go right into Taylor Swift. This is Taylor Swift and Kanye West, Tim. How much are you familiar with this situation?
I think, if I remember correctly, Taylor Swift was supposed to get some award, and then Kanye West stormed the stage and took it off her or something like that.
Sort of. So we're talking about from 2009 to 2020. Basically, Kanye did interrupt Taylor's Best Female Video speech from September 13, 2009, declaring that Beyonce should have won because she had the best video of all time, or whatever he said. I'm paraphrasing here, y'all. Kanye later apologized, but the tension between them simmered because that's weird and awkward and not appropriate. No one should ever do that. And even if you believe it, just shut up. It's not that serious. You know what I mean, Tim? It is just an award show at its core. Calm down. But anyway, in 2016, Kanye released a song called Famous. And in this, he said, I made that be, I'm just paraphrasing here, famous. Taylor denied approving that lyric. Then Kim Kardashian, who at the time was dating Kanye or married to Kanye or whatever. Mm-hmm. Now they're divorced and Kanye is even worse looking at the time. But anyway, and so she released a video or call or whatever it was where it kind of was cut off and indicated that Taylor approved this lyric because Taylor adamantly said, no, I didn't tell him he could put that in his song. Later, Taylor released a song that could, in 2020, she released a song after she got off her record label. We've talked about this. Mm-hmm. And it had the whole unedited footage, which basically was her telling Kanye, no, please don't put that in your song. And he proceeded to do it anyway.
Yeah, I know nothing about Kanye West other than that he is not a good person.
And he had a song that about being a gold digger that was written on another song from an artist back in the 20s.
Yeah, it's like Ray Charles or something like that.
It was.
But I mean, why does Taylor Swift even give this dude the time of day? I mean, isn't Taylor Swift a far more...
Because that song was weirdly popular for 5 minutes, and it was insulting to her.
I've never heard a Kanye West song, and I'd prefer to keep it that way.
Well, to be fair, I can't blame you, but I'm just saying that's why it came through. There was a few back and forth. There was like a Taylor Swift It's Over hashtag that was really popular. But then when she did the reputation error and she put the whole thing out and blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, I'm just going to say it. Kanye's kind of terrible.
Yeah, that's
he's done a lot of terrible things, and he's not a good person.
That's my understanding too. I don't see Kanye West writing checks for $100,000 and giving it to every member of the crew.
Well, we're going to go into something Tim will know a lot about because he has very distinct feelings, and he has talked about this. Liam and Noel.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Oasis, Tim's favorite drama. Tim, what would you like to say before I get into it about these two?
The Gallagher Oasis brothers. Now, they are a pair of gentlemen from the north of England. Yes. They lived in a very small house growing up, and I think Noel had the bigger bedroom than Liam, and that is where their feud began. And they've been feuding ever since about this. I mean, it's just like, come on, guys, just get over it and grow up. You're rich and famous now.
So for perspective. And I find it so funny because in America, like, we kind of knew a little about that, like the Brit battle of these bands, but like, it was not, you know what I mean, making headline news. But in the UK, apparently, it was all the
news. Thing is, I don't know if it's the same now. Certainly, growing up in the 80s and the 90s, and probably into the 2000s, there was a culture of tabloid newspapers. It's very common. Everybody bought a newspaper, and mostly a tabloid newspaper, whether it's the Sun, the Star, the Mirror. Maybe to the Daily Mail to some degree. But all of these newspapers was really just like page 6 gossip column. And the front page is always, you know, someone feuding with someone and someone doing this to someone.
The Daily News.
Yeah. And they would build a celebrity, Oasis would be the biggest thing for 2 months. And then they would bash them right down.
So I find this very funny because I'm not familiar with it. But for those who are like me and are a little bit lost, this started about 1991 and it's still going strong to this day, though nobody is confirmed. There is an infamous back and forth of profanity, lace, weird interviews, physical fights. I'm going to get into that. And even while on tour, and MTV's Unplugged in 1996, Liam skipped the performance due to a sore throat. We're putting that in parentheses. And then proceeded to sit at the balcony and heckle his brother the entire time. And the final kind of straw was in 2009, a fight in Paris over Liam breaking Noel's guitar. And then Noel officially quit Oasis. I don't know. I feel like if money comes in, then they're fine. Also, Liam recently called Noel a potato on X.com, aka Twitter. And Noel once said Liam is like a man with a fork in a world of soup. Now, I found these two things to stand out to me because I have never heard of any of these things. This is like mind-blowing to me because like I hear you talk about these things and I'm like, this sounds very interesting. There's a Whiskey Go-Go incident where Liam allegedly hit Noel with a tambourine during a concert. And then there's a cricket bat incident where Noel allegedly hit Liam with a cricket bat during a recording session.
Thing is, the pair of them.
That sounds ridiculous. I'm going to be honest with you.
The pair of them are idiots because they have been so lucky that they was in a band and they got famous and they had fame, fortune, and everything that goes with it. And I thank you all and all that stuff. And they've achieved something in life that so many people aspire to do, and they did it, and they became very popular, and they reaped all the benefits of that popularity and success. However, they just can't keep it together, and when they're hitting each other with a cricket bat or whacking each other in the head with a tambourine, they just need
so ridiculous.
They need to step back and go, hang on a minute. Do you realize that we're doing something that so many people want to do and we get to do it and we're famous and we're rich and
now
success?
People are still talking about us in 2025 and what are they talking about, Tim?
And we're just doing idiotic things, which is just destroying everything that we've created. I understand that people have their differences, and especially musicians creative.
It sounds ridiculous.
Creative
if I'm being
differences
honest.
And stuff, and bands are split up and things.
But like even people I don't like, Tim, I'm not hitting them over the head with a cricket bat.
It's
like,
just
that's so stupid.
And it's just idiocy that comes from the fact that one of them had a bigger bedroom than the other growing up. And that's where their feud began. It's just ridiculous. The other thing Of course, they're supposedly doing a reunion tour this summer.
Of course they are.
I don't ever see that happening. I think,
probably not.
I mean, I can see them potentially doing one gig and then that'll be the end of that.
And then one of them's going to walk out with a cricket bat and throw it at the other one's face at this point. Like, I'm reading, Tim, I just watered it down, but there was a list of things they have physically done to each other on national TV.
I know, it's just stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
I was like, are we serious right now? Because the thing about it is like, even people that I don't care for, you know what I mean, Tim? Like, I don't have a list of things I physically assaulted.
And there's a clip.
And these two are brothers.
There's a clip on. Well, the thing is, they've always been a nightmare, but there's a clip on YouTube of when
they just seem terrible.
Of when they appeared on David Letterman the very first time. And apparently, behind the scenes, they were an absolute nightmare to deal with. The whole band was a nightmare to deal with. They had lots of like amplifier stuff on stage at top volume, and it was everything was just a disaster from a backstage perspective. Their performance was okay, and then at the end of the performance, David Letterman goes into full insult comic cutting stuff because when Noel was taking a solo, Liam decided to sit on the drum riser and play his tambourine. So they finished the song, and then Dave says, he said, "Oh, that was Oasis, ladies and gentlemen." They said, "Thing is about these young UK bands, they come over on a jet. They obviously get very jet lagged, and then as you saw the guy there taking a guitar solo, the singer had to sit down."
Jesus. Like, it sounds fake. I'm going to be honest with you. It sounds like if I were writing a comedy bit about a feud.
I know.
Does that make sense to me? Like, it sounds so stupid. Okay, well, I just wanted to throw that out there because I know Tim he's very familiar with that feud. Now, this is kind of a cheap shot in the sense that it's not a person versus a person, it's a person versus a thing, but I thought it was worth it because I found it very interesting. We're going to talk about Prince versus Warner Brother Records, because apparently there is an active feud there, and I recently came into light of this. With that being said, the timeline for this is about 1991. I'm sorry, that is not true. 1993 to 2014-ish. The dispute is Prince wanted to release music at his own pace, while Warner Brother wanted to control the schedule and the marketability. If you know anything about Prince, he could care less about that. And he was very much, my art is my art, and I will do it in my own time type of person. For good or for bad, because I could understand. I kind of seen this with Michael Jackson when I was watching the This Is a tour where he was kind of like, I know and I feel things. And from an out perspective of a record producer, that's like, what do you mean you feel things? Like, feelings don't tell me what's happening. So I kind of get it. But anyway, so Prince did that. And then in 1993, Prince changed his name to a symbol and wrote slave on his face, which in protest of his contract. Tim, are you familiar with this scenario?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, that's where the symbol comes from, because he claimed he changed his name to a symbol. I'm sure that his passport still said Prince Rogers Nelson, as did his driver's license. The
love symbol or whatever he called it.
Yeah. But yeah, he went through a period of time with slave written on his face. I mean, Prince was an artiste. He was a musical genius. He was all of those things. And, and a lot of people in the creative world tend to be unconventional in their approach. The problem you have, if you look at like Warner Brothers, they are a commercial entity. They signed Prince for a certain amount of money because he was.
He'd also been signed with them since the 70s.
Yeah, but I'm sure his contract was renewed every year or every 2 years.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm just saying he'd been working with them for a long time. It wasn't new to him.
So they expect product from him that they can then sell, and that's how Warner Brothers makes music. So you give Prince a bunch of money, he makes some music. You press them up on CDs and records and tapes, you sell them, you make money, you give him some royalties, you make a load of cash. That's how the business arrangement works. But if Prince just wakes up one day and says, I'm an artiste and I work on my own time, I mean, you have to, looking at from a commercial business perspective, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if Prince, at that point, Prince was such a name and so famous and so well regarded, he could have just bought himself out the Warner Brothers contract and then just released stuff on his own label, and then he could just be him.
Well, the irony is in 2014, he re-signed with Warner Brothers but somehow regained ownership of his own master recording. So he rewrote the contract in 2014.
And that's common. I mean, when you renegotiate your contracts, think that a lawyer would work with whoever and do that stuff.
And to be fair, like, I feel like, okay, I'm just going to say this, and this may sound bad as someone who loves Prince and loves Michael. It would be really hard to work with someone who says things like, I need to feel it. I need to know when the vibe is there, right, Tim? Like, musicians and artists do this, and there may be some legitimacy in their thoughts and feelings in those moments. But from an outside perspective, if you're just the person helping them write the contract to make money, that's hard to feel.
Yeah, but I mean,
I get it.
Yeah, because you imagine you're in your day job and then somebody who reports to you, and then you say, okay, I need you to perform this task today. I need to feel that task.
And you'd be like, I don't care what you feel. I need you to go do that.
Yeah, you're in a creative sphere, but it's different, with music, but it's essentially the same thing.
I can see how the contradictions could happen, especially with an artist you've worked with from the 70s. So none of your demands are probably new, Tim.
No.
Like, does that make sense? No, I understand that maybe Prince is going through his own thing, and then we all know that Prince kind of bought himself out and started doing his own stuff, and it was wonderful and amazing and great for you, Prince. But yes, he did go through a whole thing where when he changed his name and the slave on his face was a thing. All right. So next one we're talking about is someone that Tim is not familiar with at all, but we're going to bring it up and I'm going to see what Tim feels or thinks about this. And we'll go through this one really quickly. This is Nicki Minaj and Cardi B.
Yeah,
I can see Tim having like dazed and confused look on his face.
Yeah, I always thought Cardi B was like some kind of backup cardigan.
So it is not. This was from 2017 to 2019. Both rappers threw subliminal disses and things of that nature at each other. The problem is sadly, even in the rap world, there's a lot of sexism, I think, and it leads to women being pinned against each other when you have few women working together, and that's a whole debate for another time, but that's my theory on what happened. There was a brawl. So on New York Fashion Week on September 7th, 2018, Cardi confronted Nicki at Harper Bazaar's Icon Party. That's the most weird thing I've ever heard. Cardi threw a shoe and was escorted out. And then she had a visual bump on the head of Nicki. Nicki had a bump on her head. Cardi threw a shoe. Cardi accused Nicki of trying to sabotage her career. Nicki denied it, criticizing her on Queen Radio. Well, if you cool down, the two have never reconciled, and we will never know, Tim, if more shoes will be thrown.
I tell you, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night going, will they ever get it back together?
Yeah. Sure, Tim.
I wouldn't know what either of those two people look like if they walked in this room right now.
That's kind of what I figured. So we're going to go to one that you are a little bit more familiar with. I know you have at least a visual on. And this is Courtney Love and Dave Grohl. Did you know they had a feud?
I didn't know that because, I mean, there has been a lot of controversy around the death of Kurt Cobain and the alleged involvement of Courtney Love. And, I can see that Dave and Courtney might not necessarily see eye to eye.
So, from the timeline of 1994 to 2014, now I will say some of this is alleged. Do not come for us, internet. Do not sue me, whoever owns Dave Grohl's net worth. I'm saying this is alleged because there is some bad stuff here. After Kurt Cobain's death, tensions brewed between the two of them. And in 2001, Love sued Grohl and Christine Nova, whatever her name is, to block the release of the Nirvana box set. Did you know that?
Yeah, I'd imagine that was probably more to do with royalties than any kind of
I'm sure
passionate decision on that.
All right, so here's where the alleged comes in. In 2012, Love tweeted, we love a tweet, right, Tim, that Grohl hit her daughter, Frances Bean. Both have denied the claim. By the way, the daughter says, no, that never happened either.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Grohl was always positioned as the greatest nice man of rock. He was Good.
Joy has some thoughts about
Yeah,
that. We've
good
talked
old
about this.
Dave.
I
You
don't
know, he's
trust
good to
him.
everybody. He works with charities. He's
See, that bothers me.
nicest guy, stuff like that. However, he did cheat on his
Fine.
wife and father a child.
Yeah, it's fine. So they did reconcile, though that's up for debate. No one has ever said, no one's ever physically stand down to him. But in the 2014 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they shared a brief hug. And that's
Well, there we are.
all I
Let
got.
bygones be bygones.
I mean, I'm sorry, Courtney Love. Like, just stop. Dave Grohl's music catalog, comparatively to yours, is different.
Yeah, I mean,
It's different.
I've got the album Whole Celebrity Skin. There's a couple
Yikes.
of good tracks. So if I'm being completely honest, there's a couple of good tracks on it. That one that goes dum bam 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 bam, don't make me over. Bum. I can't remember what it's called, but that's a good track. And there's a couple of other good
That's
tracks.
literally the only one anyone knows, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't see Courtney Love and her band selling out stadiums all over the world at this point.
Try to remember what that is. Hold on. Let me look that up because I know what song you're talking about. Hold on, I'm Googling it, guys, because I can't remember what song I'm talking about. Celebrity Skin, Doll Parts, Violet, or Malibu. Celebrity Skins is the main. Ba-na-na-na-na-na, don't bring me
Is that what it's
over. I know
called?
it's
Celebrity Skin.
Yeah, that's got to be it because that's the number one song from 2009. Does that sound right, Tim? Let's see. Hold on. I'm just going to listen to it. This is it? Yeah, that's it. That one. That's Celebrity Skin.
I do know one thing though, and this may have come up on the podcast before, but Courtney Love had a brief love affair with Steve Coogan, who plays the character Alan Partridge. Did you know that?
Of course, no. I didn't, but I should have thought that was coming back to Alan Partridge in some way. That's why
So
I said,
I don't know how they knew each other, but they had a brief intimate relationship.
It's a weird example of how Hollywood connects people you would never think.
Yeah, but the funny thing about this is that there's the Alan Partridge character is not so as well known in the United States. I mean, I've introduced you to Alan Partridge, but if I ask 10 people I work with, they may...
And I didn't know that until
one
you showed me.
person might know who Steve Coogan is, and the rest of them wouldn't know Alan Partridge. So Courtney Love met this British actor and thought, we're going to spend some time, and everything was fine. And they had a relationship, etc., etc. So apparently, Steve Coogan met Courtney Love at the studio where she was working on music, and they go off to their hotel and have fun. The next day, the crew in the studio, some were Brits and some were not, but knew of Alan Partridge. Mm-hmm. She comes back in the studio the next morning, and they're all like, "Oh,
of course
I'm
they
Alan
did.
Partridge! Oh!"
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, saw that coming. Should have saw that coming. I don't know. I'm just saying, Tim. That's very upright. I'd have been like, that insert eye roll here. Would have been my answer to that. That's funny, though. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great example, though, of what I'm saying. When you don't feel like two people should be connected and then you find out they are, you're like, why and how?
Yeah, it's very, very strange.
Hollywood's a small world. Not that me and Tim would know. We're obviously members of Hollywood, aren't we, Tim?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, well, Tim's still having to carry his band equipment, so maybe not.
Yeah, that's always been my dream. You know that.
I love how that will forever be Tim's dream. I just don't want to have to carry my amp. All right, so the next feud is two people Tim does know, though I feel like he probably knows a little bit about more one than the other. This is Eminem and Mariah Carey. Did you know they had a feud, Tim?
I did not know that. This is new news to me. That's probably 30 years old.
From 2001, so older than yes. So from 2001 to 2010. So basically, Eminem claimed he dated Mariah. Mariah says that did not happen. There's some back and forth. There is this famous quote. I'll give you more details about the actual thing, but there is one of my most favorite disses in the world that I think is iconic, fantastic, and as a diva should handle her stuff. Mariah was on an Andy Cohen TV show. And for those who don't know Andy Cohen, he does like the Watch What Happens Live, and he produces all the Desperate Housewife TV shows. So his shows are dramatic, for lack of a better way of saying this. And she was on Andy Cohen, and he does this segment where he gives you like 3 different things and you can deny one of them, or you can answer all the questions, and it's hot topics at the moment. And so with this one, he asked her to say 3 nice things about an M&M. And she says, they come in a convenient package. They're multicolored. And you can eat them and they taste wonderful. And it was such an iconic Queen moment and lives rent-free in my head, Tim. They come in a convenient package.
It must be said. So I'm probably never heard a track. Maybe I've heard one track by Eminem, but for years I thought they were talking about boxes of chocolate sweets. I really did.
It's true. Mariah apparently did too. I'm just saying, it's a great joke, right, Tim, to like play off on a reality TV show. Like, that's iconic.
Yeah. And do you know what I found out recently? This never made any sense. Do you know why he's called M&M?
No.
Because his name is Marshall Mathers, M.M.
Oh, that makes sense. I guess I
read that recently and I was like, oh, yeah.
It would make sense if his name was like Eminem, but he spells it like Eminem, so it's kind of weird. Okay, anyway, it doesn't matter. So anyway, they both wrote diss tracks about each other, which does not convince me they weren't dating, Tim, because if they weren't who's going to write diss tracks about each other unless you're dating? Like, let's be honest, Tim. That does not convince me they weren't dating.
No, I mean, it could go either way.
So anyway, basically, they went back and forth. Eminem released a song called Bagpipes from Baghdad and The Warning that make comments disparagingly about Carrie and then her then husband Nick Cannon. They're divorced now. Carrie responded with a song called Clown and Obsessed. I feel like the names of those are very important. Clown and Obsessed. And then they became a cultural phenomenon with a music video that Carrie portrayed as being stalked by Eminem, Tim. Yeah, that's a little weird. And it was an Eminem lookalike in the video, but it was, yeah. Nick Cannon was married to Mariah at the time, got involved, and he wrote his own feud diss track. Both Eminem and Mariah made public statements about the feud, further escalated the situation. The feud continued for several years. Both artists have made other music and public appearance, and it seems like the feud still stands today, and there is no official resolution. But I'm going to say this, Tim. They're not convincing me they weren't dating, because why would you put this much time and energy into someone you weren't dating?
Yeah, and the other thing is that it just speaks to the fact those people have got a lot of time on their hands.
I mean, I don't know about you, Tim, but like if some guy said, oh my God, we're dating and we weren't dating, I'm not going to write 2 songs about them.
No.
Like, I'm not crazy, right? That seems very intentional. Now, I'm going to get sued for Mariah Carey or something. She's got a lot of power. But I don't know. It's weird to me that, like, you would put that much energy to someone you're trying to tell you're trying to explain that you weren't dating. And I like both these people. So I just want to say things went south in there and refusing to admit whatever happened in their relationship. Anyway, all right. This is something that was completely new to me. So I had heard most of these, because, Joy's up and up with the modern artists from like 10 years ago. But nothing I have even talked about is remotely modern. I guess it's Tim O'Sullivan. Did you know Sinead O'Connor and Miley Cyrus had a feud?
No, I was not aware.
Why
were they feuding?
Okay, so the timeline is 2013, we're talking about here, which I'm like, what? So they were involved in a public disagreement after Miley Cyrus's music for Wrecking Ball, which sparked a response from O'Connor. O'Connor wrote an open letter criticizing Cyrus's decision to portray herself as half nude in the video. suggesting it was a result of exploitation by the music industry. Cyrus responded by mocking Sinead O'Connor tweets about her mental health. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
I mean, one thing we know about Miley Cyrus is that, I often think to myself, put your clothes back on, love. But I mean, that's who she is.
The Wrecking Ball video was not that intense, Tim.
I think
She's
they made a cut
t-shirt and underwear.
I think they made a cut of it that was a little more saucy than the one that was on MTV or whatever it was showing.
You're probably right. I didn't think about that. I mean, I get what I'm saying, but like, do you think penning an open letter is worth it?
No, I'd probably keep that thought to myself and just move on.
So apparently there was a conversation that Wrecking Ball was a modern take on Nothing Compares to You, and I do not agree with that.
No, they're completely different.
Two weird. I have no idea. I thought that. But anyway, Cyrus responded to O'Connor's letter by sharing screenshots of O'Connor's tweets from 2012, which included things about her mental health struggles, which I think is absolutely gross and disgusting. And then she proceeded to compare O'Connor to Amanda Bynes. And my thing is I would, with the thing about Miley is, one, there were a lot of people telling Miley, calm it down. Like, you just need to, I understand you're coming off of Disney, you're trying to prove yourself, and you're doing a lot of gross stuff that not everybody would agree with, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is. Nothing that O'Connor was saying is something new. But to insult her mental health struggles, I love Miley, but that's pretty bad, Tim. That's really bad. It's not a great look. Given it was 2012, and I don't know how old Miley was in 2012, but she was pretty young. After O'Connor's death, Cyrus publicly apologized and expressed regret from how she handled the situation, saying she was unaware of O'Connor's fragile mental state, which I don't agree with because she was sharing things about her mental state. But Cyrus has dedicated her performances to O'Connor, including a rendition of Nothing Compares to You on SNL's 50th anniversary. So, amends have been made, but I thought it was incredibly random that Miley Cyrus and Sinead O'Connor had a dispute. I don't know.
Yeah, very odd. That's not something that I would have expected.
I would not have ever put them in the same room together, if that makes sense, Tim. Like, I just wouldn't have. Once again, this goes back to show you. You know, they always talk about how small of a world Hollywood is. Mm-hmm. And you really don't realize it until you hear this. Tim, have you ever had a situation where you've heard of two people working together and you're like, really? They even know each other?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a celebrity example, but certainly in this local area. You know, I've played in 3 or 4, 5 bands maybe since I've moved here and done some fill-in gigs and stuff. But, you know, I'm aware of or vaguely know, not to say all the players in this area, but, you know, a good chunk of them, just through people you know who people you know and stuff like that. So even in this very small community of people generally playing cover bands, you know, as I said, when you get into the world of Hollywood and music where you're touring, you're going to be sharing a lot of the same professional resources. So that doesn't surprise me.
I guess I don't know. It's very weird to me. Like, it makes me feel weird. So anyway, that is one of my PSAs that I have a struggle with. I hear, like, it'll be like the most outrageous thing, like, I don't know, Bob Marley is BFFs with insert the Clash here.
Yeah.
Or something. And I'm like, why? Were they even in the same, like, hemisphere? Like, I don't get it. All right. Well, Tim, I know we're probably are we about an hour now?
We've probably got time for a couple more.
All right. We'll do about 2 more, and then we'll probably talk about how Tim can improve your gas mileage or something. I don't know. I don't know why Tim is personally improving your gas mileage.
We're full service on the No Name Music.
You have some tips here, Tim, on how they can. All right, so this one caught me off guard, and I know Tim is going to know one of the people in this, but I don't know that he's going to know the other person. This is Tom Petty and a modern day artist called Sam Smith. Are you familiar with this at all, Tim?
So obviously, I know Tom Petty. I mean, he's a legend. I found out about Sam Smith maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I've never heard a Sam Smith music song. That's a weird way of saying it. A music song. But that's a name I'm familiar with.
So what it is it is one of those things where there are two songs that sound very similar. I'm gonna say it, Tom Petty and Your Estate. Please don't come for me. I love you guys, but I actually think that this was a power grab. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it, Sam, because I think that the songs are not that similar. I just don't. So back in 2015, Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne, who wrote I Won't Back Down, I won't back down. There's a copyright dispute with Sam Smith over similarities between the song Stay With Me. So for those who don't know the song, and I don't think Tim does, it goes, No, I won't back down. That's kind of the rhythm. And then the Stay With Me. Oh, won't you stay with me? You hear it?
Yeah.
It kind of sounds similar there. Don't come for me, internet. I don't know if that's the right. No, but you get the idea. I feel like you have to say that, Tim, because someone's going to say something. Resulting in Petty and Lynne being credited as co-writers and receiving royalties for the song. I do think that they sound similar, but if you hear both of them, Tim, I just don't think they're similar enough that I agree with the decision. Me and Tim have had this conversation many times. There's only so many chords. There's only so many chord progressions, and songs will eventually sound the same. And it's probably only going to get worse as time goes on.
Yeah, because thousands and thousands of pieces of music are being made and played every day. And like you say, there's only so many variations of that.
Well, and that rhythm, oh, won't you stay with me? Oh, I won't back down. That I can think of probably 5 other songs that sound not dissimilar to that, right, Tim?
Sure.
Like, I don't know how best to say that. And I don't know what the chords are off the top of my head. You could probably get Tim to listen to it and he could tell you, but Tim's also kind of like a good guitarist or something. It's got like an ear for it. I've heard that before.
It's like G and G.
Okay, nerd.
It's like G, D, and A and stuff. It's
I'm sure it
stuff.
is. All right, let's see. Let's chat. Oh, that could be fun. All right, Tim, if you were going to tell me what you think the chord progression for I Won't Back Down is, what do you think it is? We're going to put it in Chat GPT. I put him on the spot, y'all.
I think it's in the key of G, I think.
Okay.
It's probably like G, E minor, C, D, and the chorus is probably like G and D and C.
It is in G major. He's right on the money, y'all. E minor, D, G, E minor. All right, Tim.
And I've never played that song before. I pulled that out of my head.
It goes E, D, G, E minor. Well, it's E minor, D, G, E minor. So that's the verse. And then the chorus goes C, G, E minor, D. Yeah. And then it repeats itself and you just get a C, G, and D. And then the bridge is C, G, E minor, D. To be fair, y'all, that's like 70% of music.
But I will say the other day, I was on hold with a vendor at work and their on hold music was playing. And in my head, I could hear the chords. And I have a guitar in my office. And I thought, I wonder if these are the chords. And I was correct.
So it's so funny you say this. So my twin sister Brady, who has been on the podcast and sends Tim random messages on Facebook, mostly just talking about music and stuff. Nothing so Brady. That's just like, you know what I mean, Tim? It's usually just something she wants him to know about music. And Brady's an avid listener to the podcast, and she forces everybody in her family to listen, so we can all listen. So we love Brady. With that being said, we were talking about Tim the other night. Timothy, you don't know this, and I said Tim is that weird kid who like can hear things that no one else can hear. Because I was like, he can't really, you've admitted many times, you don't even like read tabs. Like you mostly just hear the song and pluck it out yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a.
I hate to say that, but that's what you say.
Yeah, that's like a Spinal Chat joke where you say, instead of saying you can't read music, well, no, I can't read tab. Well, I don't know. It's just easier for me to pick it up by ear. I mean, I joined this new band, Nightwings, which had 40 songs I'd never played before. Can I
ask you a dumb question, though? Is that mostly because so many songs are familiar and they're within, like, the same realm of 6 chords, give or take? Or is it just your ear?
It's a combination of there are a lot of songs are similar and follow similar patterns. Yeah, it's also a combination of the fact I've been blessed with a good ear. And also because I'm too lazy ever to learn music theory. And you put all those pieces together and there you go.
And you get Tim O'Sullivan.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because we were judging you a little bit the other night, and it's so hard for me because Tim was talking to me recently about someone, and we won't get into details. We were talking about having the ear versus not having the ear, right, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
You were discussing someone having the sound and versus not having the sound. And for me personally, I always struggled with that when it came to playing instruments. But I have the ear for singing. And I don't know how to explain that to someone else. And I have this struggle. Have you ever had like in your life? So someone says, well, they put a song for you, like me singing, oh, I want that. Like I just instantly know how that sounds in my head. I know how that should be sang. But then someone tells me to tell them how to do it. And I'm like, I have no idea how to tell you how to do it.
Yeah, because somebody...
I don't know how to tell them how to do it.
I have a friend who lives around the corner who I occasionally do duos with, very occasionally. And he is a fair guitarist. He will tell you himself he's not the best guitarist. So he plays a bit of acoustic guitar.
I mean, that's like me. Like, I'm very open about it. I'm not a great musician when it comes to instruments.
He's not a super great guitarist, but I said he would tell you that.
Okay.
And I occasionally would go around his house to jam. And he says, oh, can you teach me how to play lead guitar? And I said, well... the way I approach lead guitar, you've got a major scale and a minor scale, and then you like your root notes are along the bottom E string, or the root notes are along the G string.
That's the most basic thing.
And then there's a lot of notes that join in together, and sometimes they're major and minor, but you just sort of have to figure it.
And he's like, "Great, Tim, I'll be able to play them all."
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh," and then he did some research and came back. He said, "Oh, do you think I should learn the cage system and the circle of fifths?" And I said, I've never heard of either of those things. Well, I have now because he mentioned them. I said, I don't know what those are. Probably. I said, I'm just telling you my lead guitar method. I don't know.
And the funny part about that is, as someone who's not like, I'm not Tim's level of guitar, y'all, I tried to literally tried to tune my ukulele backwards because I looked at videos of someone who was left-handed and Tim called me out about it. I'm not the one. But I get it when it comes to singing because for whatever reason, I had the ear from a young age. Does that make sense, Tim?
Sure.
But when Charlie's like, what do you mean sing from your chest voice versus your head voice? I'm like, well, when you're singing, like, can you feel it in your chest? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, just sing from there. And I realized that sounds stupid. But like in my mind, I'm like, no. And then I'm like, if you want to go to your falsetto, you can feel it. Like I physically can feel when I change from my through my throat, Tim, into my head. But to tell someone to do that naturally, they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, but I
realize that sounds stupid.
I also remember having a similar conversation with a guitar player who could play amazing slide guitar. He was a very good friend of mine, and he was probably the best slide guitarist in the UK at the time. And I can't play slide guitar. It's nothing I've ever been able to really get the hang of. It's a very different discipline. And
makes sense.
I said to him, can you show me how to play slide? And he's like, yeah, well, you see, you sort of have to think of it like a G chord, but you just play the strings in the middle. And that was,
are you speaking English?
That's what he said. And he said, because he played in standard tuning. And that was his lesson. He said, oh, you just move it around and then you just find the bits that fit.
And it always is like, and it sounds really like, as someone who's even like explaining to the other person, you're like, this sounds stupid. I know it sounds stupid. All right. Well, now that me and Tim have spent 20 minutes talking about, Joy shouldn't have closed out of her music news. Hold on, guys. Not her music news, her episode, because she was looking at the chord progression to prove that Tim was, in fact, correct. I accidentally closed out. Hang on. We will do one more, I guess, brawl, whatever you want to call it. Feud. That's the word I was looking for. And then we will leave it alone. We're going to talk about Elton and Madonna because I hinted at the beginning of the episode, so I feel like it brings it all full circle. So you guys can understand the dynamics of what actually happened. And by dynamics, I mean they both just had big egos because it's Elton John and Madonna. I've said many times on this episode, Tim, on this podcast, my favorite story about Elton, and he openly admits this. He was struggling with substance abuse issues at this time, and he was in the height of his career, and he called down to a hotel and asked him to cut off the wind.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, that is my favorite story. And he openly at this point, Tim, is like, no, I'm dumb. Like, that was dumb. I realized that sounds really stupid. And I love this self awareness. I will say, I don't think we've gotten that from Madonna, but that's a debate for another time.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a lot to unpack there.
Madonna is such a strong personality, though. I could see. I mean, there's a whole YouTube again. Going back to David Letterman, who I'm a big fan of. His company,
Yeah.
Worldwide Pants, is posting all kinds of stuff off YouTube off his late night shows, and there's a video called the Madonna Collection, which is him and Madonna, and that they also had a very rocky relationship. Some of the very early appearances, you could tell that Madonna was not super into this, and Dave was just being goofy, and she was not feeling his vibe at all. But like as the years rolled on, I think they got to a point of an understanding. And she appeared on that show many, many times. And the last few appearances, she was even reflecting on some of the things that she'd done in the past.
So that is what I gathered from looking at this. So those who don't know, I kind of thought the feud went back further than this, but apparently it didn't. The feud began in the early 2000s, which I just assumed this was an old school feud. And maybe they didn't like each other before, or maybe they hadn't really come in contact. I can't confirm or deny. But those basically was John made a critical comment about Madonna's life-saving and abilities, specifically about her on SNL, and different things like that. But the biggest, I guess, punch to the throat was that in the James Bond theme Die Another Day, he said it was the worst Bond tune ever. Now, Tim is a self and nominated Bond aficionado. How do you feel about this?
I think it's one of the worst Bond themes ever, but
I can actually agree. I thought it was pretty terrible.
You look at Duran Duran's View to a Kill, Carly Simon's Nobody Does It Better, Live and Let Die, even Shirley Bassey singing Moonraker, which
it doesn't feel like Bond.
It doesn't feel
all.
like Bond at all. It sounds like a mid-grade electronic chart pop hit. Like even the Sheryl Crow one that she did. It just all of your classic Bond songs have a Bondism about this. This just sounds like poor quality electronic music. Madonna has got amazing songs and has released some great albums and all of that stuff. She's a legend. That is not her finest work.
I will say though, sometimes what I gathered is, and I bet Elton would agree with me, his biggest downfall is his mouth.
Yeah, I'm saying this on a podcast which has a small reach.
Yeah.
I have no business dealings with Madonna and probably never will. So my opinion is, irrelevant to some degree. But if you're big in the music industry, and again, you're sharing all these professional resources, Madonna's going to find out, and it's not a good place. Be like, Elton, I'm with you, Elton, but just keep that to yourself.
I will say, I think that if you live in our current country, one of the biggest downfalls of a lot of people is their ego, Tim, and their inability to shut up.
Yes.
So another thing that came from, so in the early 90s, apparently they were at least stopped together at the Brit Awards, and they said that they were kind of alluding that they had something. The other thing was Elton, once again, he was this big mouth and wanted to talk about in 2004 and different things where Madonna, because Madonna, was one of those people who had the kind of resurgence with Time Goes By, that song or whatever in the early 2000s. Her lip singing. He wanted to bring up her lip singing, and there was some truth to it, and it was a little weird, but it's not uncommon, and you have to be careful with lip singing, I think, as an excuse, because I feel like every artist has had some form of lip singing, even if it's just backing tracks, Tim. You just have to be a little bit careful with the way you bring it up.
Well, I will tell you, as somebody who's made YouTube videos, and in my fabled video of me singing Love Shack with Jenny from the Freak Jam, yes, I performed that. Yes, that is me on the track. Yes, I am singing that track, if you want to call it that. But when you see the video of that, I'm lip syncing it because I'd already previously recorded it and I'd edited all the elements together.
Wow, you just broke everyone's heart, Tim. They thought that was in real time. No one. Wow.
Yes.
Hot off the presses,
the line where I'm sitting on the bonnet of my car without a microphone and I'm singing along with it. Yes, I'm probably not singing that live.
Well, you just broke everybody's heart. So anyway, Madonna and Elton did sing together at Carnegie Hall in 1998. I have not went back to look at it. I do not know how it sounds. Anyway, but then in 2002, he said Die Another Day was the worst. In 2004, Elton dissed Madonna at the Q Awards, which is what Tim was talking about earlier. And this is the exact quote: Madonna, best live act, question mark. F off. Since when has lip singing been live? Question mark. He said on stage, anyone who lip sings in public, you should pay £75 to see. No, hold on. Let me read this. Anyone who lip sings in public on stage, when you pay £75 to see them, should be shot. Thank you very much.
Elton.
Like, Jesus, sir, that seems a little dramatic. Madonna wins in 2012. Madonna won the Golden Globe over Elton. For Madonna for Masterpiece. Elton was for Hello, Hello, which she wrote with Lady Gaga. On a red carpet with Carson Daly, John dismissed chances of winning the trophy. She did take home top honors, though John brushed it off as saying, Elton's been known to get mad at me. Oh, no. She brushed it off as saying, Elton's been known to get mad at me, so I don't know. He's brilliant. I adore him. He'll win another award. I don't feel bad. A year later, John declared Madonna's career is over. In an interview with Australian TV, accused her of mean girl behavior, which I find kind of funny because I'm going to be honest with you, it seems like he's the mean girl.
Yes.
And then he said, she's such a nightmare and she looks like a F-word fairground stripper. She's been so horrible to Gaga. So from what I gather, Madonna was really mean to Gaga because Gaga got a lot of, like, you know, hit back. You listen to her album, Tim, you have a reference point now. She does sound a little bit like Madonna, and that is a thing that people went back, and Madonna was pretty mean to her. And I think that Elton took that to heart because Elton is very close with Lady Gaga, and Lady Gaga is the godmother to his children.
Yeah.
Like, that's how close they are. So I think that was it. And then in 2019, Elton revisited their feud in his memoir, Me. And that is the most, I find it funny that Elton John's memoirs, they meet. Like, that's an interview where Madonna called Gaga's Born This Way a ripoff of her song, Express Yourself. She ran Gaga down on an American chat show. I couldn't see why she was so ungracious, nasty about her, rather than taking it as a compliment, particularly she claims to be a champion for women. I think it's just wrong. An established artist shouldn't kick a younger artist down at the start of the career, which I agree with him. And then it goes from there. He said, I still shouldn't have said it. I apologize. That was bad. Yada, yada, yada. Then in 2023, Elton praises Madonna's AIDS tribute. Thank you, Madonna, for your advocacy. And then in 2025, following John's Saturday Night Live appearance as a great music artist, Madonna posted a photo of them together and said, buried the hatchet. And basically, she ran him down backstage and forced him into apologizing for what I've gathered, but he apologized.
There we are. Well, I'm glad that these two feuding people.
And this was the catalyst for the whole episode because I came across a headline saying they buried the hatchet.
They can come together and make nice with each other.
And maybe they're all just really old. All right. What would you like to leave the people with?
Just be kind to everyone that you meet.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.